if I click go live, if I click go live, it shouldn't be anyone here because it is. It shouldn't be that anyone is here. I don't know why it is. Properties, advanced audio properties. Mono. 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 Mono el mono. Let's go. Now, all I need to do is, in theory, I need to go into my stream settings, possibly. How do you list a stream? Oh, edit. If I click edit, that live stream unlisted visibility public release to the public done. Save. Now, in theory, this should cause everyone to appear. In theory. Does anyone exist? If you exist, give me a woot woot hello. Can you double hear me? That's the real question. Do you hear me shouting twice at you? Is there an echo? Whoop whoop hello, hello, hello. You're hearing me normally? Okay, that's good. Okay, if you're hearing me once, that means I can monitor the stream to see if it's dropping. I can hear where you guys are at. Okay, so you see the little box up there, the little above the fan? That's my computer. Um that's our computer, and it is very upset. It's very upset. Um the GPU just stopped working a couple days ago, and my brother is gone to the north, up just northward. So I don't really have a good computer. I'm on like an Apple what's it? An Apple. What are apples? But fruit. No, I am on a 2013 MacBook Pro, possibly. Let's double check that. Let's see how old this machine is. I'm just letting everyone show up. Monica, go upstairs. She loves you. Sorry, dog trouble. So, potato quality here. YouTube is mad at me. It's saying error. This is a terrible stream, and I'm saying like I'm trying my best here. I'm trying so hard. We're gonna about this Mac. Show me about it. Uh-oh. I'm gonna break the computer just by asking what. Asking to show like system things. Okay, what is this? 2014. Okay, it's pretty close. So this is a oh my god, that's 10 years. This computer is 10 years old. What an old lady. What an old lady computer this is. Okay, now the real question is whether or not we can crit stream. If I click this, will it? Nope. That does not work. Okay, so we need to open Discord. Do not switch. No one cares. Patron chat. Patron art share, perhaps? No. Critique stream. We open the critique stream. Oh, I gotta go at everyone. Oh my god. Okay, we are live. So critique stream. So let's see if we can show stuff. Open in browser, I guess. Okay. Okay, we're making biscuits here. We're making some biscuits. Let's make this one open over here, right in front of us, so that we can stare. At it. And then what we do is we do this one, perhaps. We do not want high presets. We are baby. We will be teensy tiny. Oh my god, that is way too teensy tiny. Whoa. Oh no, are we crashing? Oh, look at me, there we go. Okay, and window capture. Let's pick my break is almost over, so I don't know how long I'm so sorry. OSG. Oh, we're crashing again. Oh, this poor computer. She is old. She is an old child. old lady, elder computer. Okay, Pigment. I know your break is almost over. I'm so sorry. Um, I'm gonna switch to face cam. Okay, so you sent me in um where you sent me in way too much actually. There's like a limit to 3,000 words, and there was like 12,000 I think. So I read the first half of your outline. I'm gonna open it on my phone as to not destroy the stream for everyone here. Um, the limit was pages. It's the limit is pages or word count, whichever you hit first. Okay, just so you know. Um, yeah, because it'd be 40 pages of comics if it's like under 3,000 words. Okay, yeah. So if you were like it for long form like comic submissions, so if it's like illustrations and there's like 40 pages of comics, that's the limit. But if it's prose or like an outline or a script, it's 3,000 words. Just because it takes 15 minutes for me to read 3,000 words roughly. Yeah. So I read what I could of what you sent in. I wasn't sure entirely what your questions were. Um, I know you were trying out the lace method, and I did notice that. Um, I did make note of that. Where are we? Um, yeah. Um, yeah. I always have trouble looking over outlines because they're very dense and it's hard to see how they're going to play out. Like, even with my own outlines, and I know myself more. Um, a general critique on the vibes you got so far? Okay. I think your midpoint is very strong because I left off at the midpoint and it definitely amps up to a very good degree throughout it. Um, there's a lot of setup. I know I was missing a lot because I didn't read all of the character bios and stuff. Um, yeah, there's a strong prologue. Um, yeah, I was a bit confused. Like as far as the story goes, like the story is fine. I was mostly focused on how you were labeling each of these things because I think that there's some. It's either I'm not reading correctly or there's some confusion about like what each letter of lace means. Um, in terms of like plot points. It's also because you would write scenes in your plot points, and scenes can be so dense with different information. Um, but looking at page 11, um, uh, like the event plot to establish that magic exists. Um, a lot of them I was like, I think it's this. Yeah, I think it gets a little confusing. Like event plot, I think was the one I noticed that you struggled the most with identifying. Um I think you would label things as event plot a lot of the times when they were action, like, or not action, when they were character plots. Like a lot of what you were writing was character plots, which makes sense because character plot kind of goes throughout all of things. Um, yeah, I think event plot was the one you were most confused on. So like, I know there was like fight scenes that were labeled event plots, and with like fight scenes, um, especially between two characters, like fights are more like conversations in a way. They're like action conversations. I think that's what fight scenes are. Like they're not just action, they tend to be very character heavy action. So I'd pay attention to that when you're trying to like understand lace. Um yeah, cuz an event plot is something that upsets the status quo of like the world. I think is more of the scope of event plots. So like when I say an event plot is an explosion, it's because it just like disrupts everything. And if it disrupts the character in a way that makes them sort of like think about themselves, then it's more of a character thing. Event plots disrupt the status quo. Um, I was thinking like an example is like I only know Lord of the Rings. That's the only book I've ever read. But like um Eowyn killing the Nazgul is very much a character thing because she's proving herself as a warrior, blah blah blah. Whereas like when the cave troll attacks, that's not really the cave troll attacking isn't an event plot though. The cave troll attacking is a location plot because it because they're trying to leave and go through a place and something gets in the way. Like whenever you think of middle bits for the lace quotient, like you need to think of it as like obstacles or developments. Yeah, for each element within it. Like so a location based scene is one where it gets in the way of going from point A to point B, whereas like a an event middle point would be something that gets in the way of reestablishing order within the world, or something that gets in the way of establishing a new way of life, a peace usually. Um, so like a big war, I guess, would get in the way of peaceful ending. Yeah, yeah, like within Lord of the Rings, it's like all the battles and stuff getting in the way. How dare? Like that's event stuff. Character middle lace quotient stuff is going to be something that either is going to challenge the character or going to challenge them in a way that makes them uh I guess it would be their character flaw getting in the way is the obstacle in a character scene. Um yeah, but again, like all of these plots do intermingle within a scene. There just tends to be like a major focus. Um yeah, and a lot of what was being brought up was uh character and whatnot. Um I think another part is that it was very wordy and very dense. Um so you'd have a lot written down in these like story beats, and like I get it, it's a story beat, it's like more broad than just like a scene. um but if you want to be labeling like what type of plot and what's going on in it, you need to like break it down further, because a lot of these were so dense that it would be like multiple plot points happening within them. Yeah, one that's stronger than the others. Yeah, exactly. Um, and it does tend to be the case that like story beats will go over like multiple scenes, because sometimes they're a reiteration of something, or it includes the scene sequels within them as well. Yeah, that makes sense. But no, like it's a cool world, and I think you are building everything up fine. Like I think that these story beats can flow into each other nicely. Um, Again, it's really hard to say on an outline, but like the vibes are good, and um, it's a good start with trying to figure out lace. Um, because once you figure it out, you don't really have to do it, because you'll just kind of think of it as is. Um, yeah, I hope that's helpful. Um, Otherwise, I guess I'm. That's mostly all I had to say on the matter of scenes. It's def not the final thing. Yeah, exactly. Hey, Gary. Um, yeah, onward and upward, I suppose. If that's all that. Yeah, so let's go. The next one I was gonna look at was Pigment, not Pigment. You are the one I was looking at. Um, AZ, who unfortunately couldn't make it because of the dastardly circumstances of my computer. And they say like you're using a potato. Right now, I'm using like a baked potato. I was gonna ask Ursula if she knows where the cooling mat is for the computers. Yeah, because I think yours is gonna need it. It is burning to the touch, and I I'm worried about a baked potato. Thank you. But yeah, AZ couldn't make it because of the baked potato situation. I read over uh, the the scene. Congrats on getting a job. I think that's what it was. Um, New job this month. Yeah, congrats. Getting a job is hard. Um, I liked it. Um, I enjoyed how I'm enjoying Jay as a character. I think he's a very useful character to contrast with Dez, and I really liked how it built up to the gang situation and bringing that in a much more naturalistic way than the we have a cooling mat. Potatoes will not be baked. anti-baking laws are in effect. Okay, one sec. I need to figure out how to. Heck yeah! Woo! Potatoes. I don't think it's on. How do I turn it on? I did it. Okay. It's slippy and slidey, but we're good. We're good. Oh no, we're not. Oh, it's because the computer has lost all of its like anti-slip padding, like the little feet. Oh, this poor laptop. She's old. Oh my god. When this laptop came into existence, like when you think about it, if this laptop was a person, it would be in like fourth grade. It would be a fourth grader. That's old. Or maybe like a fifth grader even. It's almost a middle schooler is what I'm saying. This this laptop moves faster and faster, swiftly towards voting age. Um I got distracted. Hopefully Ursula will remember this and put a thing in the middle that says I was distracted and in the middle of talking about AZ's thing. Um Make a note that I went off the rails for a bit. Okay, back on the rails. I'm a train choo choo. Oh, there was a choo choo in this. Perfect segue. Um, yeah, I like how Dez's plot with the gang like became intertwined and a lot more natural in how it comes into the plot. I think that's really good. Um, I also like the setup of Gil putting up the poster because I know how that's gonna play out. I'm pretty sure the help wanted, and a good time to do it while Dez is looking for a job, and then he's got the two different jobs to consider, I suppose, as options, which speaks well to the plot. Um, I'm intrigued as to where we're going with Gil takes a detour. Um, Not that I expect it to be like a huge plot point. Like if it is, it is. I'm just intrigued as to how it is going to relate to his character arc and such. Um like as it stands now, it just feels a little out of place, but like I don't mean that in like a bad way, more in just like I'm not sure where we're going with it. Um and I'm interested in the direction that this takes. Um it's interesting that he stood up for the kid, I guess. Um cuz that almost feels like a later scene considering where Gil is at. However, it doesn't necessarily mean that. That just might be my hang-ups from like the last draft that I've read. Um yeah, I'm interested in where that goes. Yeah. You better eat those noodles fast. I'm almost done. Um. Hmm. But Bleskil is the real heart of this thing. Okay. The next one is Nat, who sent in a thing, and my phone will only let me see one page of it. It's great. I love it. That's not it. Like, apparently I'm reviewing Moonlight. Can we, like, please? Can I have it, please? Can I please have the thingy? Can I? Can I look at it? I don't know. Okay, apparently there was a problem loading the pages. We're gonna try it on the computer, because Ursula needs to open it anyways. Open Sesame. Oh, oh, we got it. We got it, guys. I'm reeling it in. Woo. I know there wasn't like tons of writing to comment on though, because it's like 7 pages. I think it's loading, guys. The It's my first live I've joined of yours. Finally joined the party. Welcome to the potato party. Our computer's busted, so we're using our not computer. Our saddened. Okay, so conundrum. Conundrum here. Nats is not opening. Oh, spoke too soon. Conundrum averted. We need to zoom out tons though. How do you zoom out? Whoa. Yeah, it was like the fight scene. Yeah, I don't have anything new to say. Like it is an interesting plot point. I'm excited to see where it goes. Like that's basically it. Like especially with these like fight scenes. Um it definitely like ups the tension with the broken staff, right? I'm interested in what that will hold. Intrigued. Oh, right. Crit stream. Look, I'm tiny. I don't know how to make myself. Let's get on top. Yeah, tiny. How do I always forget how to do this. It's like, how do you make the visual element? Oh, there's Ursula. Check it. Look at Fado. He's tiny. Just like me. This is so janky. What if I don't know. I don't know. I shouldn't touch things. I'm scared. Oh my god. It's like going back to the past here with the whole. Oh, Ursula. Save me. So just open one tab at a time.
Okay. No more than one tab. Hello. This is weird. It's a weird setup. Hi everybody. I currently am streaming from a baked potato, and I personally feel like a mashed potato. I'm feeling like dizzy and sick today. I don't know why. My body hates me.
Did you take a Pepto?
No.
I have told you.
I didn't take a Pepto. I'm sorry, folks. I failed you. Hello. Hi everybody. I'll be tiny, Ursula.
I told you a literal hour ago to take Pepto
No.
for your
No.
for your indigestion.
No.
Here, you pills.
Okay.
Did you open another can? This one's yours.
Oh, was that the one you had in the fridge that I took?
That was the one that you had here when it spilled.
Oh yeah, when I was setting up the stream this morning, I spilled Coke all over the desk.
We're having a great day.
It's a great day.
If you want to check where they're at,
Mhm.
you want to hear the lag. They can't hear it if you just unmute it.
Gotcha.
You can hear where you're at. I was doing that. Oh no, I sent us back in time.
Oh no. Goodbye, world.
There we go. Whatever.
Okay, cool. I'll check on that later. Okay. All right. Sorry, Nat. I'll dive into this now. What? Hip it. Oh. No, we're good. Don't worry.
Okay, I thought everything dropped.
No. Okay, Nat. Okay, so, as usual, your pages are great. As I always say, 'cause it's true. But your pages are looking good overall. And the action was very fun. Like, there was a lot of good kind of, like, you could really feel the stakes for Orla dealing with this fight. And she... Yeah, you could feel, like, the building of, like, the frustration, and then the whole, like, broken staff thing is like, oh no. Oh no. But it was good. I think it was well paced. And the tension is great. Character stuff is great. And the paneling, I think all works very well. The one thing I would say is there's some parts in here where I feel a little unclear about what's happening visually. For example, here when the staff breaks, I think it's probably because it's still in the sketch stage, and once you kind of like build things out through inking, like it'll be more clear. But I found, for example, the panel right after the staff breaks, I found it difficult to understand what was going on. I wasn't sure if it was like a spell or like a physical attack, and we're just seeing it flailing. And I was also... The other thing that felt unclear was like the end of the fight. Where I was unsure what happened to the competitor. Because like it's clear that like the staff is like breaking, and he goes to hit it, and she like raises the staff defensively, and then there's like this explosion from the magic, but then it's just declared that she's the winner, and we don't see what happened to him. And I was like, I guess he's here, but I was like, did he die for a second? Where I feel like we need just one panel of aftermath showing like where the other competitor is, because I feel like just between the page where we're getting all the reactions from the crowd, which is great, by the way. I really, really like this page in particular. But yeah, after we get the reactions from the crowd, and before Orla is declared the winner, I think we just need something like a pulled out shot showing like the competitor is down or something, he's been knocked back, and Orla is standing there. And then it can say she's declared the winner, because my brain was like, oh my god, he got nuked. he is gone from existence. But I don't think that's what happened, so. Yeah, so I would just like clarity on that. I think it could just take one panel to do, but otherwise everything looks great. Yeah, and like I said, I really, really love this page where the staff breaks and we get the reactions of everyone. It's very, like, just with the use of like these really tight, like, small panels that are all close together, and they just flow really well together. It just feels very like action-packed and cool, and like it's paced really well, it's set up really well, panels are really great. Yeah, just favorite page. Yeah, yeah, but otherwise, yeah, everything else is looking great. Yeah, that's it. Nat, I don't think you're here, but if you watch this and you have questions, please let me know. I'd be happy to answer. Otherwise, I can move on. Kuro, I see you're here. Would you like your stuff covered? So, okay, I'll go at this like page by page because I can only open one at a time. Oh. Oh no.
It's being such a jerk.
Ugh.
Keeps opening there.
I know. There we go. There we go. Okay. Was this critiquing someone else's comic? I have no idea about any of these lives. Yeah, so currently we're critiquing our Patreon supporters, their work that they've sent in. Yeah. Thanks for answering. No problem. I've not figured out how to send pages yet. What do you mean? Oh, do you mean like sending it like all together? It's fine if it's separate. Like if our computer wasn't being a potato, like I could just open them all. But the computer is a potato today. Okay.
Why are you grumbling?
Okay. So, right. So for this first page, oh, I just screenshot them and send this individual pics. I mean, that's fine, because any other day it would be totally fine. It's just today. The computer is being silly. So you're all good. Okay, so you said these are sketches for the comic you're working on. Right, so you're looking for critique on layout and readability. So first off, I really like the cover. The pose is very dynamic. There's lots of good, like, movement and dynamicness to it. Yeah, I think it's a good layout. The only exception I would say is the title, where it is like almost impossible to read past the like magic effect going on with the character. I like how you have things overlapping, but if I were you, I would make the character like smaller by like 20% probably, and just give the title, the Deity Wars title, like just a bit more room, and maybe have like the magic or the character overlapping just like 2% of the bottom of it. Because like you want it to be very legible. It's like a big part of your branding for this, so I would recommend just like making sure your title has room to breathe. The other thing I would warn you about, I think there's some contrast issues between the background and the character in the foreground, where it's all very dark in color. The thing that stands out the most is the number 1, for it being like volume 1, because it's like a bright white and a bright red. So I would just play around with the values. You could either brighten up the character, or you could make the background lighter, whatever you think works. But yeah, but the pose is awesome. Yeah, so much movement and great layout outside of the title issue. Okay, I'll see if I can open this without breaking the computer. Oh, okay. And then close that. Did we do it? Are we alive? Okay, we're good. Okay, so truthfully, I don't have very much feedback for the title page. I think it's a great layout. Good contrast. Kind of fixes the issues I was having with like the front cover, where the title is very legible, for example, as well as the other writing and stuff. In fact, if I were you, I might even use this like kind of futuristic kind of computery font on the cover, because I think you're using like a serif font. So yeah, I don't know. It feels like a good vibe to me, but that's just, yeah, personal opinion. So yeah, so that one's looking good. And then the other pages, I'll use one of them as an example, but I think it's more emblematic of like the other pages as well. So first off, I like the layout of this, and I think you're getting like, you've got like a very good sense of like how your layouts should be working, which is great. But I think what I'd like to see is just the kind of graphic elements just being tightened up a little bit. And again, this is a sketch, so I might be just like giving you a hard time for something that you're gonna fix like once it's like tidied up. But The right. So anyway, so I like how your two kind of main characters are the full body images for this like character sheet kind of intro thing. And then the secondary characters are all just like a bust portrait kind of things. And you even have a mystery character. Could be a creature, I don't know. And yeah, and I like how you have their information like boxed out so that it's like easy to read and it's pretty easy to tell like who they're referring to. But if you're able to, I would make it even more kind of uniform as much as possible. So for example, like this might just because it's a sketch, but I would recommend using a like a font, typing things out, and making sure that you're keeping really clean, like kind of padding and gutters around your text. Like make sure that they're not. I hope I'm explaining this right, because like here, not all the text is justified. Some of it's like touching near the edge of the box. Some of it's like very far away, and it's kind of just all over the place. Like I'd make sure to, and it helps when you use a font because it has all the justification and stuff like built into it. But anyways, I would just make sure that the writing is very neat. Your fonts are very like consistent in size and the fonts that you choose. And I would even make some of these like container boxes if it allows. Like obviously you might need to like move some of them around depending on like, one character bio might be like a little bit longer and you need to add a couple pixels onto the bottom or something. Like that's totally fine. But keeping them as uniform as you can, I think will really help keep things like legible and neat. And then it won't distract from like the character art that's going on, which I think is where you want like the focus to be. All handwritten stuff was for time. I used the boxy font. Okay, totally. That will totally work. I figured, but I just wanted to say it just in case. But yeah, just making sure everything is like consistent and neat, and that way you can, really let your art shine through, which is looking great, by the way. These designs are really cool. And I felt the same way about the previous page where you had the table of contents and then that like little letter that you wrote as like a letter from the author, which by the way I thought was so lovely. Where I really liked the typography on the table of contents, and that felt very like consistent. I want to see more of that. And again, it sounds like it will be like that. It was just like because of time, you're using a lot of handwritten stuff. If you can't get the art consistent, get the text consistent. Same. It's one of those things where like you want the text and graphic stuff to kind of fade into the background so that your art can shine through. And when you have it like very consistent, and very like neat, it does kind of blend into the background. Oh, the only thing I would say for the table of contents is make sure that you have enough space at you have enough like gutter and trim space on your pages. So if you were printing this, and I only think of this because you've got it in kind of like a book format, like just make sure that nothing important is being lost kind of in the like within like the fold of the page. Like if you do print this, like you don't want, for example, these characters, like you don't want their faces to be lost kind of like down the middle of your book. And the same goes for these text boxes, for example, art within the comic, text within like the table of contents or like the letter from the author. Like make sure that you have a good amount of space kind of around the edge. At least for anything important. Obviously, when you get into your comic pages, sometimes things will like touch the edge of the page and it doesn't really matter if they get cut because they're not important. But you want to make sure that, like, for example, none of your speech bubbles are getting lost into the kind of gutter of the book or getting cut off in print, for example. So that's just something to keep in mind. And I noticed it with the table of contents. The chapters on the left side are very, very close to the kind of inside edge of the book. And then with the letter from the author, just I would make sure to keep the typography tight and don't let it like stretch too far to the sides. That's why the 3D preview is great. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Okay, and then for the comic pages, so honestly, like most of my critique stuff is about the initial typography stuff. Like, the comic art is looking fantastic. The only thing I would honestly recommend for these, possibly changing the font. This could just be like a preference thing for me, but I find using a serif font. So, for example, like the font you're using on this page would be a serif outside of the sound effects. Typically serifs are used, they work really well in like large bodies of text, so like a paragraph or like like a book page. They're typically in serif font. And it all the little kind of like lines and feet and stuff that are on them, they really help guide the eye across the page. So that's why they're utilized really well in large pieces of text, where traditionally with comics it's usually that kind of like sans serif or that more kind of like hand lettered look, which is more typical. So I don't know, I'm kind of making like an argument for like, no, tradition. But it's just something to keep in mind, where I personally would recommend considering a different font, like either a sans serif or like a more typical kind of comic font, but it's up to you. Oh, it's your auto set? You'll have to change it? Yeah. Trying to think of some good typical ones. I don't know. It depends on the mood of your comic, because I've used like varying fonts depending on what the comic is. Comic Sans? Yes. Perfect. 100%. But yeah, it just depends on what you want your vibes to be, because you can use something that's more like clean. You can use something that's more like, I don't know, hand lettery. Yeah, totally depends on the vibe that you're going for. And the other thing I would recommend is another kind of like clarity thing. Not clarity, but like a little graphic thing you can do to kind of, for one, it saves you from like messing around with the fonts too much, is choosing one size for your font. So like, I don't know, it could be 12 point, it could be 14 point, I don't know, somewhere in there, whatever fits for your comic, and it depends on what the size is. But choose a size for your font within all your speech bubbles, and that will be like your default size. So unless something big is happening, like a character is shouting or a character is whispering or you're putting some effect on the speech, you'll just have one size, and then you can just kind of build your speech bubble around that. Because here I'm seeing it's very slight, but I see some where it's like some of it is some of the text is like a little bit larger, some of it's smaller, and it feels like it was just fit into the bubble instead of having the bubble fit around the text, if that makes sense. Where it makes it seem like this pointy-eared character is like shouting a lot because the text is a lot bigger. So yeah, and then some of the text is very, very close to the edges of the bubbles. And I would recommend keeping like a good amount of padding kind of around the edges. So like the top right bubble where it says sorry babe, um, that one has good padding, and the one on the left page where he says shut it, I think has very good like padding and space around it. So kind of keep those as your like what you want to aim for. Yeah, I would recommend as much as you can keep it to like size 18 if that's your default, and then only make it bigger and smaller if it's like absolutely necessary. So for example, like I said, if someone's shouting, if someone's whispering, if it's like a really impactful piece of dialogue, you can make it bigger. Or if like there's just no way you can fit it on this page without making it like a bit smaller, like that could work. But I wouldn't go more than like 1 point down for something like that. But anyways, yeah. So that's my diatribe about text consistency. The only other thing I would say is I feel like for these pages we're missing some of the layout information, because there is this like the moment where it looks like a window or a door breaks in their cell and then they leave, and it would be nice to see just on these like first pages having a better understanding of the layout, because we're only seeing one side of the cell that's facing them. And then we don't see the door until it's like cracking open. So that's just like a little thing. Like I would recommend in this first spread having like one panel that just shows like the whole cell and just shows that important set piece that's gonna like break. But otherwise, yeah, the paneling is great. The flow is really good. Yeah, I think it's all really solid. Did you have any questions? Oh, I didn't even notice the that they were sharing a cell, but one's a lady. I don't know. Depends on your world building. If that's just the norm, and it's not an issue, that's fine. Awesome. Well, thank you for submitting. Okay, so then we have Ink, who I think is away, and Mouth, and I don't know if Mouth is here. I'll cover Mouth first, because it's just the one. It's not, but they're both royal. So that'll be my excuse. Hell yeah. There you go. The royal prisoners get to hang out together. Okay, Mouth. If you're here, speak up. If not, you can ask me questions after the stream, and I'll happily answer them. Okay, so this is a design of your rat OC, and I love them. They are cute. I would smooch their widow nose. Okay, so yeah, so you want him to have dramatic shadows on the side of him that isn't facing the camera at all times, regardless of actual lighting. I think that's really fun. It's very like detective, like noir detective kind of vibe, but like very, it feels like it almost like used to a comedic effect, which is fun. Okay, and you want his jacket collar to be popping out, but you're having trouble with it, especially in a forward-facing view. So looking at it, I think with the collar in particular, what might be causing you the issue is that you're trying to avoid covering up like the face or the details on the shirt, for example. Where I think if you have someone who's wearing like a big coat and they have like these big collars popped, like yeah, Zoltar. Just look at our comic sovereign, where everyone's collar is popped. I don't know what choice that was, but that was the choice I made. Um, where I think you're avoiding covering up the face. Where I think it would add that kind of mystique to him, that kind of like half always covered in shadow vibe could just be enhanced by just giving him like a big collar that kind of goes over his cheeks even a little bit. From the front, you may have to have them kind of going outways a little bit, and kind of like going out like this, like fanning away from the face. Because right now for the shape, you kind of have this like square that's kind of facing down from like the back of his neck. What you probably want to do is make it just like a straight line behind his neck, and then it kind of like tapers out into the triangles, if that makes sense. Or you could keep this kind of square or like a triangle vibe, because I see there is lots of like sharp kind of points to his design, right? Like he's got the sharp nose and like the square hat and stuff. So if you wanted to keep that, you could also raise kind of like the back of the collar up to the back of his head more, instead of having it like rest at his neck. Because then even if the collar kind of, or the lapels kind of fall below his chin, you'd have that space to kind of like build the structure, if that makes sense. Where it could kind of like start like behind his head and then like come out more like this, like a, not a vampire collar, but you know, kind of similar vibe. Yeah, I think it just, you need to structure the collar more, and I think you need to test around with like covering up the art a little bit using the collar, and I think that'll get you the vibe you want. But otherwise, listen, I freaking love this. I love how you're using just very like, I love just like the big blocks of shadow. It's especially great on the face, where I love how you have these like solid black shadows around like the ear and like the little tuft of fur on the other side of his face. And to show the kind of like contrast between the hat and the ear, you've just got this like very small line of white kind of breaking up the shadow. Like that's just so good. It's subtle, but you still understand the shapes that are going on. I'd like to see more of that, honestly, within the rest of him, where it feels very much like you're just using not straight, but like solid white lines to kind of break things up. And obviously some places you're gonna have to do that, but I'd like to see more of this kind of like more subtle lines, where like the top of the hat is, there's a little bit of like, there's a tiny suggestion of like a white line here, but it very much disappears because you don't need it, because you can see the shape of the hat through like the where the light is hitting the front of it. And I'd like to see more of that, like here, like maybe you can see the bottom of this like jacket line, where the light is hitting off the coat, but as it kind of goes up, maybe the shadows get in the way and like the line kind of fades, if that makes sense. Like just playing around with like understanding where the shadow would fall, and not relying only on like using white outlines for everything. Yeah, I would like to see more of that, because that would be cool. And yeah, just great contrast, just like within the concept of this character. That's really fun. With him always being shadowed. As for vibes, I think I'm definitely getting like detective noir kind of vibes, because he's wearing like a trench coat and a little hat and stuff. But I love the jaggedness to him. I love like his tail is all jagged and pointy, and then he's got the squiggly little whiskers and his nose is pointed. And he's just got triangle shapes like all over. You do have a little bit of roundness through the ears and the shoes. And the eyes. And I think that brings like, I don't know, it makes him like more cute and approachable, if that makes sense, instead of being like, I think if he was all triangles, he'd look more villainous. But to me, he feels like it gives him a bit of softness, which I appreciate. Um, I also really love this fold in the cloth on the arm. Like, that's just so nice. It's very simple. It's just a few simple lines and shapes, but it really creates like volume to the clothing. It's great. Same with just using the lines on the tail. Like, obviously, you know, it's a rat tail, so they have the little lines, right? But it just, using those lines to really like fill out the form is great. And like, I wouldn't want to overdo it, but I'm wondering if you could bring in more kind of like volumizing details throughout the rest of him, like maybe creases on the pants, or like a fold here and there on part of the jacket. I don't know, something like that. But yeah, that would be really cool. I think that's it for me. Mouth, again, let me know if you have questions after. I'm happy to answer. But from there, I will go to ink. Okay. Let's see. What did you say? So, right. So this first one is a redraw from a drawing from December. Yeah, and you send it to me for reference. General feedback, especially on the perspective. So first off, the contrast and lighting is like awesome. There's a lot of like atmosphere in this picture. Like, I was looking at the older one, and it also has like very similar colors, obviously, because it's a redraw, like you were saying. And it like similar colors, similar atmosphere, but I think you're getting like a better understanding of like where the light should reflect and where the highlights and shadows should be, and it feels like a darker scene, if that makes sense. Like, it feels like it's at night or in like a dark location. I think they're underground, so it'd probably be a dark location, but yeah, and just a very good understanding of like where your contrast needs to be. Like, I really like how the Mushroom Queen, I think that's her name, is like the darkest figure in the image, so she gets like all the focus, and like around her you've got these like contrasting like yellows and oranges and stuff, where she is very like blue and purple, which is complementary on the color wheel, so it creates contrast. But everything that surrounds her like contrasts her really well, so she stands out. And even though you have this kind of like shadowed piece on the right side, it more complements her. It doesn't like steal focus. You've created this kind of like vignette around her that really brings your focus to her. The only thing that's kind of stealing focus is the cannon fire on her. Like, I like it for the action of it. Like, it creates such a story of like the destruction she's causing, where she's clearly just swung her hammer. There's like people flying, like being tossed over buildings and stuff, and they're firing a cannon at her, and it's like hardly touching her. But I think where the cannon is placed and where it's hitting her is just like too low in the picture. Like, I feel like it needs to kind of cross over her, if that makes sense. It's too condensed to like the bottom left corner, where I feel like if it was crossing over her, like either like shrapnel's flying past her, or like the shot misses, or is hitting her in the arm or the shoulder or something. I think that would help kind of like bring the focus more into the rest of the composition. Um, Especially because you only have these big orange fires kind of on the left side. Just bringing that more kind of like up behind her in the top right would probably help balance it out. But otherwise, like the dynamicness is great, the composition is great. Love the expression. Yeah, just really great work. And perspective wise, like this looks fantastic. Like there's nothing here where I'm like, oh, this looks kind of like off perspective wise. Like all the buildings are very consistent. She's very consistent within it as well. Like she looks like she's standing in the right spot. And makes sense like perspective wise. Hello, Schumann. Welcome. But yeah, but this is looking freaking fantastic. I don't know what to say. I'm like thinking of things to give critique on, but it just looks so good. You're like leveling up your freaking composition skills, my friend. It's wild. Okay, so like I said, Ink, if you have questions, let me know. So we'll move on to the second piece, which is a figure drawing, you said? Of your character Relic, who I'm familiar with. So you're looking for feedback on the anatomy. And you did some updates on the design. Are the shapes and decorating patterns on her armor looking cohesive? Okay. So I'll start with the costume. So yeah, so I do remember saying that like her armor felt a little bit plain, and I would like to see more of that detail. I really like what you've added. I do like how the detailing on her armor kind of like fills out the form a little bit. Like I like how you've got these like curving they almost look like they could be different pieces of like different metal plates like on her torso. I feel like that fills it out a little bit, and same with her boots as well. Even just adding that like little bit of detailing along the top hem like really helps. Kind of bring it together. I'd like to see like just a little bit more on the skirt part of her armor. Like even just putting like a little hemline along the bottom using that like lighter teal color. I think that would go a long way. I think that would really help fill it out. But otherwise, like she's really looking cohesive with like the patterns and stuff. Now for anatomy and figure. So the figure, the kind of line of action and dynamicness of the pose is really great. I love the kind of like diagonal crisscross stuff going on between like the way she's holding her lance versus like the stance of her legs and stuff. It's very solid. She feels like planted on the ground, if that makes sense. And there's good weight to like with the flow of her hair and her stance and stuff. The little bit of curve like to her spine, her stance, like it works really well. And I think it's a very solid start. The only thing that feels off to me, hold on, sorry. The only thing feeling kind of off is I think there needs to be like a little bit of separation between her torso and her lower half. It is hard because she's supposed to be like a very like stout kind of barrel chested character, especially in her armor, right? Pardon me. Where I feel like there's too much bend to her torso in her armor. Like it feels like the armor is like curved instead of having you know, because metal can't curve like that with armor. So there'd be like, it would come down to her waist, probably in one direction. And then as her hips turn, it would go kind of like this direction a little bit. So instead of being like a little S curve, it would be a bit more jagged. Like you can still bring in that kind of like essence of like smoothness to it, but for right now it just feels like it's too much of one piece. Like I think it needs to feel like her rib cage is going one way and her hips are going the other, instead of being this like continuous kind of S curve, if that makes sense. Like it just needs to be like defined a bit more. um um yeah, and I think it her 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 chest piece is just feeling very flat. And I think, yeah, just defining out the kind of upper torso versus like the hips would really help you with that. Because like there's lots of great detail in her arms and on her legs. It's just like the torso piece is really kind of missing from it. Um, um, I think she also feels a little bit squished by the page, if that makes sense. So it felt like, this may not be the case, but this is what it feels like just from the way the page is composed. It feels like her upper half is larger than her lower half, where, and don't get me wrong, she's like a more kind of stout character, but it feels like you hit the end of the page, so you kind of put her foot there, when in actuality it would probably extend a little bit lower. So I'd recommend just like giving more space when you're doing your figures, just so you can kind of, you don't get stunted by the edge of the page, if that makes sense. Because yeah, I think if you had more room for her torso and hips and legs, like I think it would really help with like keeping the perspective feeling correct and making everything feel like cohesive. Yeah. But yeah, but I love the expression. Again, your contrast is really great in this. Like the shadows on her armor and her face and everything. Like you've upped the contrast. It's very moody. It really helps like define the forms as well. And I think you're doing a really good job with it. So I think that's it. Yeah, Ink, again, let me know if you have questions when you get back. I'm happy to answer. And I'll double check, but I believe that is all for today. Yes. Okay, that's it.
Potato stream.
Potato stream. Thank you for everyone who joined the potato party. Let's go. All right, I'm gonna head out. I'm feeling queasy.
No.
I know. But yeah, thank you all for hanging out with us and putting up with the technical difficulties. And hopefully next time the stream will go better. Become potato. Let's go. All right. Goodbye.